Good. Welcome, really, very, very much to conversation and follow up as promised in the program we aired Tuesday with Amber Moore. We have a program with a friend of hers whose name is Johnny Hobbes, and he is a hip hop artist, and he's also being billed as a member of and and supporter of the Zeitgeist movement. He's familiar with that and proud member of that. And he's got a good story to tell. We're going to go into it this week, Johnny. For your information, the programming all week long is with what are called young people.
Okay.
I'm old, you're young, so we're doing all things with young, so bear with me, okay?
Sure.
Anyway, so Johnny, come and talk to the audience a little bit about, let's just start from the beginning, the Johnny Hobbes story, and where you were born and raised, that sort of thing is a way to wade in.
Sure. I was in 1986. I was born in Detroit, Michigan.
That's where I was born.
No kidding.
Yeah, I was
there
born.
we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. What part of Detroit?
Southfield.
Southfield. That's where I used to go to Southfield. That's where out there. Yeah, James Cousin Highway.
Okay.
There used to be James Cousin Highway. You go out. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I know that very well.
And then so I was born there. My mother moved there to help some members of our family kind of start a business.
Yeah.
That kind of didn't get off the ground right away, and so she ended up going back to New York.
Okay.
She's from New York.
Yeah.
And then I spent some time in Harlem.
And
then she sort of realized that she didn't want me growing up in the same environment as a lot of other members of my family.
Where was the family? The family was in Harlem or was in New York?
Family
was
in
spread
Detroit? Out through New York mostly.
In New York,
on my mother's side. So there's Harlem, there's Bronx.
Yeah, right.
Brooklyn, Flatbush. Okay. And it was in the 80s.
Yeah.
You know, it was not a good time for inner cities, in the 80s, especially with crack.
Right. Yeah.
So she decided to go back to school when I was born.
Oh,
and we left Harlem within like 5 years. And then I moved upstate New York.
Where?
Rochester,
Rockland
County.
Yeah.
She went to Rockland Community College. Then she went to Mount Holyoke. And then she
Massachusetts.
went in Massachusetts.
Yeah, right.
And then she got her master's and her PhD in Ann Arbor, Michigan. So then we went back to Michigan.
That's where my whole family was in.
Ann Arbor. Okay.
My daddy was in the law class of 1926, and my paternal grandmother was the first woman ever to graduate from the University of Michigan Medical College ever.
Wow. Back
in 1888. She broke the glass ceiling. Isn't that something?
Wow.
Became a doctor. And that women weren't supposed to do that. We were talking with Amore, you know, about the women not having been treated equally all through the period. But she broke the glass ceiling.
She broke it.
And I was in a middle-class family in Detroit.
Okay.
Yeah, middle. My dad was a lawyer, and that was a hard time. That was that was grapes of wrath. A lot of people were just really destitute. We had a woman who ended up in our family setting. I had a mother and a father, two older sisters, and she's like a second mother. And she would cook and stuff, but she was like one of the family. And I didn't remember my maternal grandmother very well. I was only 5 when she passed. But she did, and she said, yeah, that's right. She knew her, Lulu. That was her name, Lulu Hudson Channer. That's Hudson Channer.
Okay, there you go.
And Henry Ford used to tinker in their garage when he was about 8 years old before he became the great builder of River Rouge and everything. But anyway, she said, yeah, Lulu Hudson. She was I looked it up the other day, and she was the first woman to graduate from. I'm not sure if it was in the nation, but she broke the glass ceiling. She said, son, I'm here to tell you that Lulu Hudson was a real bitch. You're supposed to laugh. I mean, the point being is this great heroine was a real bitch, you know. And I guess she would have had to have been to make any progress back in those days.
Yeah, you gotta stand up for yourself.
Anyway, that's Detroit, you see.
So that's
Detroit. We got commonality.
There it is. I'm sure we have a lot. I'm sure as this progresses, we're gonna find.
We got a lot of thoughts about the human condition that fit together too.
Boy, do we.
Okay, I'm sorry, I just intervened with that, but you hit me with the University of Michigan. That's the whole family setting.
Right.
Yeah, but
so my mother, she broke
a
series of glass ceilings as well. With our family, she's the first person to graduate college.
Yeah, and she got a PhD.
She got a PhD
in what?
Developmental psychology.
Okay, good, yeah, right.
And so she graduated actually with her PhD the same year I graduated from high school.
I see, okay.
And then we broke up.
Were you in Ann Arbor with her then?
Yes.
Yeah, I see. Oh, so you lived in Ann Arbor.
So most of my life was in Ann Arbor.
Great town, yeah.
It was a great town. I had best friends from all over the world.
Yeah, right.
It was they were kind of hard to keep because like I moved around a lot prior to Ann Arbor, just shifting from school to school. My mother trying to make our lives better and better.
Yeah, right.
And then when we moved to Ann Arbor, we moved to on-campus housing.
Yeah,
and so it was like students that had children.
Yeah,
it was a community for them.
Right.
And so it still wasn't the most stable environment. So a lot of when people would graduate or if they would transfer, they would be moving.
Yeah.
But I had friends from Saudi Arabia.
Wow.
From the Caribbean,
right.
From Korea,
that's
from Japan.
good.
I mean, and I was introduced to all of these cultures very early on.
That's a really good. Yeah, that's a good environment.
It was great. It was a great environment.
Right.
And having to move as well, I learned to communicate with all types of people, and I didn't like it at first. It was very unstable. Every couple of years we're picking up, we're going. Or from Ann Arbor, every couple of years my best friend is picking up and going.
Yeah, I know.
But
that can be
it
hard,
forced me to have to just sort of get to know all kinds of people.
Keep moving,
and keep it moving.
And maybe get towards systems thinking.
And get towards integrating it all together.
Yeah, right.
Thinking,
and not getting into a rut, which is easy to do if
in this system.
Yeah, in this system it is. Yeah.
So
did you go to university yourself in that? Or?
Not of Michigan. So I actually, keeping along with that trend of moving a lot and meeting new people, I wanted to go to college outside of Michigan. I didn't want to go where my friends are going. All my friends are going to U of M. I applied to U of M. I got in just to, be sure I had somewhere to go.
Yeah, right.
But I ended up going to a place called Ohio Wesleyan University.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yeah, you've heard of?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Okay, so small, liberal arts school. I visited a couple of schools. What was great about Ohio Wesleyan was they had a Japanese program. I knew I wanted to learn Japanese.
Really?
And study abroad in Japan.
Wow. Okay.
And they had a very strong international studies program. That's what I studied.
Yeah.
And my concentrations were East Asian studies and developing countries.
Uh-huh.
So that was where I ended up going to college.
I'll be damned. I went to one summer at Antioch, was an advanced college. That was a advanced liberal arts college and everything like that. So you followed through and got a degree or no? Or just
I got the degree, studied abroad at Japan. Everything worked out.
And did you ever get a chance to go to Japan?
I did. I studied for a year in Tokyo at Waseda University.
Wow, that's really interesting.
I studied there. Yeah, it was very interesting.
Were you able to get much language under your belt?
At the time I did. I've lost much of it. So I studied, the first time I was introduced to Japanese, pretty hard. I was in Hawaii in high school.
Right.
And there's a large Japanese community there that go on vacation there. My mom, she got to bring me along. She had a conference there. She was going to a conference.
Right.
And right from that point, I was like, okay, I want to learn Japanese for sure.
That's where you picked it up?
And that's where I started picking it up.
The interest in Japan.
The interest in Japan.
Right.
Yeah,
okay.
in high school.
And
so in college, the first 2 years of college, I took Japanese. And then, so that I started picking up more and more and more.
Do you have a knack for language, do you think?
I think we all have a knack for language.
You do?
I do.
Okay, that's interesting.
And I think we all
okay.
Where was I? So by the time I got to Japan, I had a good sense of it, and then finally immersing myself in the culture. I mean, it was easy to pick up. And as soon as people, they see a foreigner, they don't expect you to speak Japanese.
Absolutely.
So even if you speak just a little bit,
it goes a long way.
Oh, and then they just want to talk to you, and where you're from, and what are your interests, and what are you doing, this and that, and this and that.
Yeah.
And so I had a great conversational level of Japanese.
Yeah.
And it's just about all gone now. Just about all gone.
But it was interesting you had that. Did you have your eye fixed on maybe a long-term relationship with the country of Japan and maybe do something academic, or what? What was your thought about?
Well, it started actually because I was studying business trends of the world, and I knew I wanted to change the world at some point.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of fixated on, do I want to do it through politics or through business? And I was looking at the early 90s, the late 80s, early 90s, and Japan's economy's expansion there, right?
Yeah.
Right before their collapse.
Yeah.
And so that was that helped progress my interest.
What was the collapse? 90 or is it?
It was
90?
Midnight, 97, I believe.
90. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe mid 90s.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So that started the spark, and while I was there, I ended up not being interested in business at all, and just directly wanting to help people.
Okay. Good. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and really change the world that way. But as for a long-term relationship, do you
think you were idealistic?
Very.
Yeah, very. Okay, good.
Very.
Good. We need
okay,
that.
Because people, when I say that, people are like, oh, here he goes.
Yeah, right.
So good.
No.
But when I was there, I actually didn't like Tokyo as much as I thought I was a city person. And I lived in Tokyo there. Mm-hmm. And Tokyo is, I mean, if you think New York is bad, I mean, Tokyo is like New York times like 10. With the density, population density, mm-hmm. and just the lights and the activity and the bustle, mm-hmm. and the monotony that you see. And you see what these cities, what these urban centers can really suck out of people's lives.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I became very perceptive to that. And I kind of, I still love you, Japan.
Yeah.
But I saw what industrial capitalism, what it does, what it can do to urban centers, what it can do to the human condition.
That's a bad sign because the world's heading toward urbanization. It seems to me relentlessly. I don't know, but go ahead.
And there's manifestations of it that can work, you know, because at the end of the day, it's just people coming together, and so that can be a good thing. It just has to be done appropriately.
I wonder if it's overdone, but it's Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway,
so
go
ahead. Yeah.
So I ended up spending, as soon as I started getting more money in Japan, I was teaching English because it's a very expensive
a good thing.
place.
You can do that almost everywhere in the world.
Everybody
you can almost go live and teach English everywhere.
Yeah, you can. Yeah. So there was a high demand there, and it was very expensive to live. So I didn't travel at first, but as soon as I started getting money teaching English, I traveled throughout Japan as much as I possibly could.
I understand Kyoto's beautiful.
Kyoto's
I think
gorgeous.
that's what I understand. I got a friend who's fallen in love with Japan. He loves
Nagano, Kyoto.
Yeah.
Hokkaido. So as soon as you get out of Tokyo, as soon as I got out of Tokyo, I loved the rest of Japan.
Really?
So I want to go back to the countryside whenever I can. Mm-hmm. Tokyo, not so much. Mm-hmm. Not so much.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, that's interesting. And so you did that. You got interested in that, and you took a degree. You say at where now again?
At Ohio Wesleyan University.
Ohio, a master,
bachelor's of arts,
degree.
International studies.
And that was, you didn't do a master's in that, right?
No,
you didn't.
I thought I would have. Yeah. In being the idealist that I was, I understood at this time that we needed a completely new economic system.
You understood that? Oh, you were thinking systems.
I was quite systems. Quite systems. Well, not quite systems thinking as in everything is all connected, everything is integrated. Yeah. It was more just I saw this the separateness of the systems. Right. And I saw how capitalism I didn't see it in the bigger picture of us evolving into it and how we can evolve out of it. Yeah. But I saw the detriment that it caused. Okay. Right. And then I saw applications of communism. Yeah. And I said, okay, well that doesn't seem to be working either. Yeah. So my plan was to go back to graduate school to study economic anthropology.
Oh wow!
And I wanted to create a new economic system.
Good for you.
Yeah. And then it was like around this time exactly that my friend finally talked me into seeing the Zeitgeist Addendum.
Okay, that would have been when?
This was in 2009.
2009. That's only yesterday.
That's basically. So I graduated in 2000, like spring of 2009.
Yeah, right.
And then we had seen the first Zeitgeist in like 2007, like when it came out.
What was the title of that? The Zeitgeist?
Just Zeitgeist, the movie. It might not even been the movie at the time.
Yeah, right.
Zeitgeist.
And that was done largely by Peter Joseph.
Yeah, entirely by Peter Joseph.
Yeah, really.
It was a performance piece. Like it wasn't even a movie at first.
Yeah, he threw it up on YouTube
and threw it up,
and it just went off viral.
There it is.
It really did. It got around.
Fire. Yeah.
And then he did Addendum and the other one.
He did Addendum. So because like the first movie it wasn't very solution oriented. Mm-hmm. It was just sort of, these are our ridiculous problems. Mm-hmm. Take this. Let me put this on you. And so, I found it interesting. But when my friend was like, "Oh, you have to see Zeitgeist Addendum now," I was like, "I don't have time for that. I can't look at any more problems. I can't look at any more symptoms of the system.
I got enough problems of my own.
I got enough problems. I don't need anybody else's problems."
Besides, you're also done as a hip hop artist, so we got to get to that. Yeah.
So performer, there's that. Yes. So finally, I was having a conversation with someone about the absurdity of insurance.
Okay.
And just the concept that you'll pay this corporation or this entity, right, on like a monthly basis, so that when a crisis occurs in your life, they'll help you with that crisis.
Right, like fire insurance, or
like fire insurance, life insurance, car insurance, health insurance, any kind of insurance. Right. But what we're seeing is that you're paying these premiums, and then you're paying more. Because they're an institution in and of themselves, right?
Yeah,
so they have to remain profitable. Right. So on top of what they're going to give back to you, you have to pay them a little extra, so that they can run as a business, right? Yeah. And then when that crisis happens, they're going to use all of that money that you gave them to hire some lawyers to try and fight to not give you your money.
Is that the way it works?
That's what I kept seeing over and over again. I'm seeing insurance.
Yeah.
You give this insurance, and in case something happens, I'll know for a rainy day my money's here with this institution.
Then they're going to try and welch on it, even if it does happen.
And they want to fight you to give it to you.
Okay, that's interesting in and of itself. Yeah. Okay.
And I was having this conversation. I was pretty distressed that this person was not understanding where I was coming from. I don't know. Probably a lot of people aren't understanding.
No, I can understand.
Okay.
You see it that way.
And so I was explaining this to him.
Corruption comes in.
Yeah,
Political corruption allows things to happen that shouldn't.
Exactly.
You need oversight and everything.
Yes.
And that process should involve the federal government somewhere rather than all be in the private sector.
Yeah, it has to be.
Because they'll run amok if they can, often.
Just
particularly venture guys.
That's
will.
it.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead.
There's no moral code. They have They can't afford to have a moral code.
Right, because somebody else will run away with the pot.
Someone else will take the market. So, I expressed this to him. I can't get this point across to this person. What am I going to do? And he said, watch Zeitgeist Addendum. He kept telling me now for months now. He's telling me to watch this movie. And I was not going to watch it. So he's
Where are you now? You're in New York now?
I'm in Connecticut.
In Connecticut, okay.
So she got her PhD.
Yeah.
Then we moved to Tennessee, and then we moved to Connecticut. It's a lot of moving.
Yeah, okay.
So I ended up in Connecticut. She's teaching now. She's a professor at the University of Connecticut.
Well, that gives some security anyway. The
most that we've had.
Yeah, right. Anyway, that's good. Yeah. Anyway, so that's.
So I'm in Connecticut.
So you saw the addendum,
and I finally saw Addendum.
And what did that say to you?
And it's man, that was it.
Yeah, right.
That was it.
You were hooked, right?
I was
right.
I was hooked.
Happily hooked.
Happily hooked.
Different being happily hooked than not happily hooked.
Yeah, than not happily.
Yeah, right. I'm
hooked because I have to be hooked.
Yeah.
So I immediately threw away the idea of studying economic anthropology. I was like, okay, I'm going to put my energy behind this. I'm going to study the ideas behind this.
Okay.
So
I
started
think there's
studying
some anthropology or economic anthropology within the addendum.
Oh, I mean, absolutely. But I didn't want to study it anymore in formal education.
You'd rather study it with the bias. Instead of Mr. Marx or something, I'm going to do this addendum as a way of
This addendum is my starting point.
Or the Zeitgeist movement.
Or the Zeitgeist movement.
And that's Jacques Fresco.
That's Jacques Fresco, right? So we started as an adaptation onto the Venus Project.
Right.
And we started as the activist arm of the Venus Project.
Oh, really? Okay.
Right. And
were you down in Florida with Jacques?
I got to visit him.
Yes,
I got to
and
visit
there's a woman.
Roxanne Meadows.
Roxanne, that's right.
They're all great.
Yeah.
So I was amazing seeing
that goes back in my mind 15, 20 years or so. They made that film. They had a film with a locomotive going, and it was
an older one.
channeling a lot of what Fuller had.
Right.
They were. And it seems to me that an awful lot of what seems to me to make sensible thinking is very often and consistently and well linked into the legacy of Buckminster Fuller.
He does seem right.
Did it seem that way to you?
Absolutely.
The systems thinkers usually come to him and have some wrinkle on it, but it's really essentially
So I hadn't heard of him at the time. Right, it was first Jacques, but in studying Jacques and then the influences of Jacques, that's how I began to research Buckminster Fuller.
Fresco,
and then I immediately saw the similarities. I wonder if they ever met. Do you know if they ever?
I don't know. I don't know if they did or not. I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know. I never met the press. I never met Jacques.
Never met Jacques. Okay.
I had done a program with Fuller. Way back when.
Yes.
Way back when.
Yeah.
1974. I was onto that way back in the 60s. Onto Fuller. Yeah, but anyway, that's the sidebar. So you got hooked on the addendum.
So I got hooked on the addendum.
Right. And maybe you can explain to the people or some of the things that attracted you so much to it, and then we want to talk about the Zeitgeist. And don't forget, we got a clip of you as a hip-hop artist? Or
this is a music video, my official music video from May Day, which is May 1st just passed. And yearly it's a celebration of International Workers' Day.
Yeah, sure.
Right? I mean, and then even in ancient times it goes back to celebrate the blossoming.
Yes, isn't it a relief? I'm so glad to see this winter over. I'll tell you, it was terrible hard. Anyway, so addendum, and how did you deal with this newfound sort of direction, if that's the right term? Or what did it mean to you?
It
or inform your behavior or your way of thinking.
It was funny you say behavior, because something I knew there was at the time, I didn't know how to articulate it, but something that they talk about a lot in the Venus Project, and that now, being with the Zeitgeist movement, as I've expanded my knowledge of, is human behavior versus human nature. And I saw everywhere that the excuses for why there was so much deprivation and so much violence was just that we were innately aggressive and we were innately violent
and greedy,
right? And I knew that wasn't the case because I would
yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm seeing people be nice to each other.
All the people I like were really lovable, good people, human beings.
There's
right.
like, I mean, the nonprofit sector, the entire sector in and of itself is sort of an example of how you can be as altruistic as possible in this monetary system.
Right.
So I'm not believing, what they're saying. And addendum kind of was like, there's human behavior and there's human nature.
Okay.
And really what people think they're seeing as human nature is human behavior that's instigated and perpetuated by a particular environment. And this environment is one that's rooted in scarcity, right? And so we have money as a medium of exchange, right? So in exchange things, I don't have something, you don't have something, we both want what each other have, money. And it became a commodity in and of itself, and it sort of became this very corrupting thing.
Okay, all of that's it, but you spelled it out,
yeah. And so, and I'm, you hear the phrase, money is the root of all evil, right?
Yeah, that is the phrase.
And that goes around, but people are still, they're not really researching how money came into circulation, how it even comes about, and how it's the root of all evil. We just have this idea that it is. And so Zeitgeist Addendum it taught me now study money mechanics, study human behavior.
Money mechanics,
just
Federal Reserve Board?
Federal Reserve, how they manufacture money out of debt, right? And so there's never enough money in circulation to pay off all the debts, because to even put money into circulation, the banks have to basically charge you for it.
Well, okay, yeah, right.
They have to charge you for it, and so you're always going to be in some sort of debt.
Okay, yeah.
It's called fractional reserve banking.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and you got into that.
I got into that, I began, and I wasn't really interested in economics.
And that was stressed in the addendum particularly? Or was that what got you there?
That was an addendum. That's
what got you on.
So it taught me exactly how to study money.
And you saw a pathway for you to follow that was effective in a practical sense in terms of trying to get at a more idealistically, morally oriented world.
Right. I saw it. It could actually be implemented.
That's important. That gives you a lodestar to follow and principle and something. Rather than just drifting along. Yeah. Okay.
Because I knew I wanted to change the world. I had no idea how.
Yeah.
Right around the same time.
There's a lot of people are like that, don't you?
There are. I saw that especially with Occupy Wall Street when that started.
You get involved in that?
I was involved in that. Yeah.
You were on the side of the police and everything. You were beating people on the head.
Protesters. Lazy protesters. Yeah, we can talk about that too, because I was a part of a very special working group. We were the first working group as a part of Occupy Wall Street that participated with organizations and activist groups outside of Occupy Wall Street.
Are you going to go to the Left Forum this year?
I am. We're going to speak, actually.
Are you on a panel or something?
I'm on a panel.
What's the panel's title?
Beyond democracy, capitalism, and scarcity.
There you go. I love that. I've got a panel. Did you know that? I want you to come. It's on Saturday the 1st at noon. Right?
Okay.
It's called Transcending Material Scarcity.
There it is. There it is.
Well, that to me is the major thing that may be part of this zeitgeist moment that is never, ever, ever able to be mentioned in polite circles or any other circles because it's assumed to be absolutely ipso facto absurd. It's rather like an analogy I'm using now, I don't know if it makes any sense, is that Galileo particularly, they invented lenses that allowed you to see the universe in a way where they could examine the orbit pathways of Jupiter, and it led him, and Copernicus and so forth, to put forth the fact that this Earth, which had always been, and all the identity factors and the economic systems such as they were, I think there's always been a few people who, using the idea of real politics, would be able to assume their role of political legitimacy in a particular order by having the biggest club, where they could go and hit somebody else on the head and conquer, and then have minions, soldiers that will support them, and then that's how they establish political legitimacy. It's called real politics or reality. Is on that principle, and it was always on the assumption that there wasn't nearly enough.
Too,
So it was. I think there never was, in an ideal ontologic sense, enough until now.
Well, hunter-gatherer societies, they had.
I mean enough in an ultimate in a sense that isn't political or isn't historical. It's evolutionary. Okay. That when you have an evolutionary process, like we're all African, we're all descended of, they had a thing the other day, it's all coming out of, the science seems to be there, that when first we appeared 200,000 years ago, 200,000 years ago, 10,000 generations, and it was down, they might have been down to the whole of the people that had come out of Homo erectus. We had evolved up Homo erectus, Homo, Australopithecine and everything. And there were as few as maybe 200 to 1,000 people who carried the whole future in the evolution of the Homo sapiens species, up to 10,000 generations where we come now. And we're closing quotes on that. That's what we're closing quotes on now, in my humble opinion. We're transcending through extended consciousness, ability to make the world different through good design, ephemeralization, doing more with less, good design, all of these. We're actually maybe increasing the number of people on a world scale who can be realistically seen to be a have. You know Bakari?
I know
Bakari
Bakari.
Page?
I know Bakari.
He wrote a book now. He would have aired earlier this month, or this week, and he wrote a book called Enough for All Forever. Or, we may be actually transcending material scarcity, which has been an ontologic reality until just yesterday. We didn't cross that 50% mark, according to Fuller or Fresca, until about the year 1970. Were you born in 1970? You weren't even born yet. It was before you were born. You were nothing but a gleam in your daddy's eye. But anyway, do you understand what I'm saying? So I think that there's always been scarcity in the technologically augmented capability of providing life support for a growing population. And we now may have heat factored in to say we may have crossed the 50% mark in an equation that says what percentage of the world population in terms of capability, don't confuse it with the inherited institutions that were all formulated within a condition of scarcity. If you have that, it's zero sum. For one to win, somebody else has to lose. The whole thing, where the only way to establish legitimacy, is still operative politically. Whoever's got the biggest club wins. And that kind of. But there's not nearly enough. One thing you have to make certain of is not nearly enough.
Which was the justification point of having these incredibly unequal systems that created inequality.
For 200,000. No. Well, 200. We don't know what. We don't know what it was like. Yeah, 10,000 maybe, because we don't know what very well what it was like in those 190,000 years when we were wandering around in the wilderness.
Paleontologists are learning a lot about human history. You should have
studied some of that anthropology that you missed.
I still studied a little bit. Economic anthropology.
Yeah, what it was like. Ashley Montague wrote very well. I don't know if you read Montague.
I haven't read it.
He's really good on the likely way. I think there's a good chance that we were prey for a good title of the time on the Serengeti Plain to the big cats. They ate us with a lot of regularity because we were so vulnerable.
And fire changed that, and we were scared of the night.
A long time,
we were scared of the night because the big cats could see, at night. Their eyes were well adjusted,
and they've also got big teeth. They got big teeth, and they can run very fast.
And they can run very fast,
and
they're very strong.
And we have nothing but.
And we're these puny little.
That's probably part of our carried legacy or something that we were for a very long. I would assume that we were a prey. I took a doctorate in geography. I had the best geographer in the world as my advisor, and he had a theory about the seaside home of early man in let's say in Africa. In the headlands, you could put up you were able to fashion at a very simple level. You could not building, steel barricades. You didn't have steel. You did all the resources were here as we came out of the cave. All the iron ore, everything was here. We had a liaison with technologically utilizing it, but you could build up a wall against the cats, and then also there was a incredible source of the seaside home of early man or ecological niche because of the clams. The clams are just an inexhaustible capability along the seasides of the world, and that you could be on the headlands and protection against the cats as an ecological niche for early man. I don't know if it is. His name was Carl Sawyer. He was wonderful. A real professor, a real thinker. He had a beard, and he had a pipe. and he would be really talking about big issues.
Where did you go to school?
That was at Indiana. I took the doctoral work at Indiana University.
Okay.
That was down in Bloomington. But anyway, that's the thing. But so we get to that point.
You're a Midwest guy. You are Midwest.
Well, yes, I'm Midwest New York and Midwest Detroit. Yeah, it was Detroit. We were in Detroit and Ann Arbor. Where my grandmother broke the glass ceiling because she was a bitch. Had to be. That's the thing is, you had to be. But
an effective bitch.
But an effective a woman's liber, I guess, or something. Because she had to be. You had to be assertive in order to do that.
Sure.
You shouldn't have to be assertive. You should be able to do it on the reasoning of the good thinking and so forth. But anyway, you get to that point, and then you get to the point where, like from Fuller or Fresca, that you get to the point where the percentage of the world population that can be realistically seen to be a have. They did a chart in World Game.
Yeah.
Fuller, World Game, 65, 75.
I've read Critical Path.
Critical Path, and they said that what percentage of the world population could be a have, and they had maybe 10% by the First World War, 20% by the Second, and it starts going hyperbolic. And he projected in 1952, this Fuller, and I think Fresca picked up on it, and by extension Peter, Joseph, and us, that we were heading for about a 20-year period of imminent crisis as we moved into the future that would only continue, along with the exponential increasing of all the information technology and the robotics. And so, but we were going to cross the 50% mark on a world scale about the year 1970.
Yeah. I'm hoping that we take into account, though, or that they were taking into account capitalism's ability to evolve and constantly adapt. I think that's actually where Marxism kind of falls short.
Well, that's not Marx.
No, that's not Marx. No, I'm just saying as an assessment of capitalism and seeing its inefficiencies and seeing where it's efficient and where people are going to want to transcend it. And there's in some form or another, there's going to be revolution, whether it's technological revolution, whether it's political or economic revolution that's strictly from the people. And I kind of started to see that capitalism, instead of like the upper class, instead of remaining very stubborn in their policies, they began to give us, little bits and pieces that we think we're having. So like labor unions kind of developed out of this. We got working hours decreased. Women's got the rights for votes. You're talking about your grandmother.
You're looking at the United States.
I'm looking at the United States.
We had an incredible thing after the Second World War. It just went constantly up.
Decades, and then you have civil rights that arise out of so black soldiers are fighting in Europe, and they're seeing conditions of black people in Europe. They're a lot better than in the United States. They don't know about segregation.
Oh, absolutely. No segregation. No, somebody said the only thing the Persian brought to the Europe in the First World War was Jim Crow. They didn't have racism at all, like in France. Like our friend Amber studied in France and so forth. The racism in America was horrible in the United States. But anyway,
so I'm just sort of saying, capitalism is not just one set of economic theory. You know what I mean? It's constantly evolving. I mean, the root is there. The competition is there. It presuming out of scarcity is there. But how it manifests is constantly changing. And so I think people become more complacent.
I think so,
when you don't get to see.
Did we mention earlier Galileo?
You did mention.
Yeah, we mentioned it. And Galileo came up with an understanding that really, really messed up people's consciousness, serious. And he said that he could see that the Earth was not the center of the universe, which was intrinsic to all the creation stories and the sense of identity people had, and they put him in jail for having an idea. We're in the thing, when you talk about transcending scarcity, it is so inconvenient to all the institutions that have been inherited within a context that they're going to want to put, they're going to say that's ipso facto absurd, it never can be, even though the transcending scarcity may be able to be actually demonstrated, is too inconvenient to all the inherited institutions that were developed, predicated, thinking, ideology and so forth, that was predicated and built within a condition that's being qualitatively transformed at the level of capability.
So they want to preserve, they want to preserve themselves. And so in doing that, they have to preserve the economic system, the situation that they arise out of.
Well, the Catholic Church only let Galileo off the hook about 20 years ago, and that was hundreds of years ago. Those patterns do not die, and I think we probably learned a lesson that it's not cavalierly thinking you're just going to all of a sudden everything's going to change, because there's the system works. The system works. Buses run, people go, things are produced, things are done, and it has a lot of, a lot of identities are wrapped up in the things people do. They get a sense. Right. There's a lot of psychological, anthropological, and reasons that for the system. So you don't just cavalierly, or I don't think we just cavalierly say, got to take that into account.
Yeah.
And the political drag that might come by what the term reifying. You just reestablish institutions in place.
Okay.
The architecture, the thought, and everything. So that's there, and it's been encouraged. So we've had a qualitative transformation that is allowing for perhaps the full realization of the human potential for everybody within an ecological context that is available to us now. Abundance, zeitgeist, this kind of thing. But it's so new, and it's like Galileo, and there are people who, and then you got all the people who are fighting within the context that's been transcended at the level of capability, and they have a very hard time introducing the idea that there's been a qualitative transportation that we can begin to relate to the future and build institutions toward, like Fuller called, an operating manual for spaceship Earth that takes into account the reality rather than the drag of the institutions inherited.
Psychology accounts for that.
You think so? Yeah.
It's called system justification theory.
Yeah. Okay.
And so even when people see very, very blatantly, that the system, there's many wrong things about it.
Many, almost 360 degrees, you can see. Really, it's just coming up in a system's way.
But because they've established an identity in this system,
absolutely,
right? They're still going to figure out ways, profit margins,
and it works. Right? The system does work.
The system works.
Yeah,
the system works. I mean, people say it's broken. I used to say that it was broken.
You don't say that now?
I don't say it's working. I think it's working exactly how it's supposed to work.
Okay,
now.
I got that feeling too at a level, but I'm still upset with all the inequities.
I'm upset, but it's working how it's supposed to work.
I think that's the case.
Out of competition, out of scarcity.
Right, and realize we should be on this side, and we should have something that would emerge that will be able to be understood by, perhaps haltingly in some of the extremes of it, but it should be able to be understood and gone along with, maybe tentatively or something, and all the way from the far right to the far left and everyone in between is something that everyone will be able to come to agree with, rather than all the fighting that is going on now within the courts and everything, because of the assumption that if I win, the other loses, that kind of thing. See, it's not to be abandoned or subsumed or to my way of thinking, willy-nilly. Marx said somewhere that it's we're free to make a new world, but it has to be taking into account that which we've inherited, and that's something that ought to be taken into account in terms of the broader world society. But it is moving in the right direction.
I think we are.
There's reason for optimism, which is a little hard to see when you get looking at all the dysfunction. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't mean to interfere.
No, I mean, well, you mentioned, between Democrats and the left and the right. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think it's about, number one, it's about human beings. And number two, for all of these economic systems, right, that we've had, particularly the modern ones, the capitalism, the Marxism, feudalism, mercantilism, that kind of grew into capitalism. They don't take into account the Earth's resources. They don't have a reference to how we can allocate and distribute resources abundantly. Well, even abundantly, we get to the abundance eventually, but it's all rooted in money circulation. That's the root of it.
The money system.
And they use it's not rooted in resource management. They use resources, but they're not taking into account, are we using the resources at a rate at which the resources can regenerate? Right?
Well, I don't know what's going on, again, at the level.
And so that's what
Fuller used to talk about
regeneration.
no, he used to talk about like the transatlantic cable that gave a kind of squeaky signal over to London from New York, and every 175,000 tons of copper cable was replaced with a 400-pound transponder on a satellite called Telstar, and you have 175,000 tons of copper cable that can be recycled. You can recycle the minerals; they're still there. They can be done, and that we may be able to do that more effectively. And then also, but you do have this conflict between what they call the private sector and the public sector. Now, I did a program with Peter.
To an extent, I mean,
he seemed to think that the system is going to emerge out of resource-based economy thinking and zeitgeist and everything. it'll just subsume both private and public sector.
There won't be a need.
Bitcoins and things
there
like that. Yeah, there won't be a need. Okay.
Well, for definitely for the private sector, but I mean the public sector kind of grew out of the private sector because I mean when you have an economic system that's rooted in scarcity and we have to compete over these scarce resources.
They all have been.
You know, yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so when you have that and you have the stratification, you have the deprivation that grows out of that, and the inequality, then you kind of need this other sector, this public sector, that kind of says, okay, let's tone it down, let's mitigate some of these symptoms.
That's Roosevelt.
You know, antitrust laws, you have, you know, all kinds of regulations
that you have to sit to be overwritten in 1999.
Yes,
it was overthrown to investment banks.
Yeah, to the Clinton administration, which a lot of, you know.
It's funny, isn't it? It was the end of that.
You would think, you would think being Clinton's a Democrat, you know. But no. So, you have the public sector that kind of grows out of an outgrowth of the private sector. Yeah. Because of the detriment that it's causing.
But then you have, are you fellas in Zeitgeist very aware of a man named Louis Kelso?
I've heard of Louis Kelso.
Louis Kelso?
Yeah.
Louis Kelso is somebody that I'm really turned on to, have been for a very long time. And he was an investment banker, and he wrote a book along with Mortimer Adler. Okay. Mortimer Adler, he was at the University of Chicago, great books. In the minds of many people, Mortimer Adler was the leading, people will vary, philosopher in the American experience. He was a major intellectual philosopher. And he gave impetus or imprimatur to the work that Lewis wrote in 1958, in the middle of the Cold War, where all the issue was the United States and the Western powers against communism. Okay. That was the thing that motivated the thinking geopolitically and so on. But he wrote a book, and the title of it is a little bit disquieting to a lot of left people. It's called The Capitalist Manifesto. Marx had written a book called the Communist Manifesto that informed Stalin and the West, and that's still informed by the labor theory of value.
Sure.
The left. I mean that labor produces all the wealth. We have the right to that, and that we ought to get away with this private sector that is just congealed labor, owning the ownership issue. That's an evil thing. Where it should all be in the hands of the nomenclature, all in the hands of the public sector, socialism, where everything is being done by the public sector, and you get justice and get rid of private property and, let's say, capital instruments or capital assets.
Right. So we propose, getting rid of private property, but not because it's a bad thing necessarily, because we can transcend it. Because what's the point of owning something when you can have access to it?
Well, because there's a lot of institutions tied up in that. That's what's going on now, with the debt ceiling and all that.
Right.
But he said and that the capital instruments are becoming, and we have robotization going on, and the robots are taking over production, and the labor input can and should and ought be, no, not Luddites so much, but in terms of the left, they're all tied up with the idea of how wonderful it is to work on masses estate, where the assets are all owned by a tiny plutocratic class, and if only you're really, the labor theory of value ought to be brought into question rather than be the underpinnings of the way you see the way toward justice.
Okay.
And that you ought to do is have ownership be vested, capital be formed in a way that will build ownership, not into those who have past savings that can make the collateral to make an investment that's going to pay for itself out of its future earnings, which is the way the business class is able to build up. That should be the way capitalist form should be democratically dispersed to everybody. That will give them an earning a source of income coming from the ownership of a capital instrument producing wealth to give them effective demand to clear the market. They're now undercutting the labor market, and the labor is not able to get income enough to clear the market. There's going to be a mix-up. So they should, they should build ownership. They have ESOPs. They could have companies that are owned, the capital assets are owned by the workers or by the general society as a way to give income to people, because that pays for itself after about 5 years of its formation. About 5 or 6 years after it's formed, it's paid for itself and can throw off dividends. That's going all now to the super wealthy, because the left thinks the only thing where you should get a job is have a job, and the jobs are being eliminated. Maybe, I think so. I think the challenge to the whole thing is to bring up the capitalist manifesto, and that's something that the capitalists could be hoist on their own petard. And you need something to hoist the left.
So I think
the left's all out on its own petard.
Yeah.
They don't have a thing that can inform the political class to build an operating manual for spaceship Earth that can get a situation that can liberate humanity and the ecology in the Fullerian view. But they're going to have an economic system beyond what it's all. Congress is totally deadlocked now.
Right. So, I mean, yeah, with the labor theory of value, you want to relate to your constituency, who are laborers, and you want to, appeal to how they identify themselves as laborers, right? So, but what we're at a point with now is that people don't have to be laborers. We don't have to work anymore.
How are they going to get
the
money?
automation.
How are they going to get
money? They're not going to need money. Because
not
things are
going
to be made
money
in abundance, in a resource-based economy,
yeah,
right?
How are you going to do?
Fuller
Yeah, well, how exactly is the purchasing power going to be able to be disseminated to the vast majority of the people on the planet if they don't have the ability to have a job by which they earn money?
Are you talking about in
now,
RBE?
No.
Oh, right now.
In the world.
Right,
that's the major
problem.
problem.
I don't know. I mean, maybe the government would have to just start issuing vouchers to people, or I'm not sure how they're going to rectify this. But it's a problem. I mean, technological unemployment is happening,
and
people are losing purchasing
in the
power.
Real body. No, but the actual productive process is getting to where the input from labor is moving to the vanishing point. They can produce everything without human labor input, and that's the major way.
Rate?
And that's different.
Better.
That's outsourcing and dealing in disparities.
Well, it's still cheaper to use robots, though.
Well,
you don't have to pay them wages. You don't have to pay them sick leave.
Yes, and they can produce. They can produce, but don't you understand? The people had to do that. When Mr. Ford did his thing in Detroit, where I told you he was in my grandmother's garage before he started Ford. They had to have those people turning those nuts. They were needed. Now they're not needed. They're needed for things like hip hop, art, and the things that really matter.
That's right.
And one of the things we're talking, and all in support of the zeitgeist, but I think they would do well to investigate this book, The Capitalist Manifesto, and the following to that, as a way of being sort of an outlier, but a way in which you can challenge the whole system. Now, we've talked a lot. We're in agreement. We're on the zeitgeist page, and I'm glad that so much of the youth is picking up that. And God bless Peter Joseph and all of that kind of stuff. But listen, your build, and we've only got a few minutes left, brother. And your build is a hip hop artist.
Yes,
you brought in a tape.
Music.
Now talk about that. I mean,
so
we got to get your clip in.
Yeah, let's get my clip in.
I want to let people know about you as a great hip hop artist.
I'm a hip hop artist.
Okay, talk to that part of you.
Okay. So, sort of in kind of figuring out how I wanted to change the world, I realized that it was going to be through my musical expression.
Okay.
I realized.
You're a musician?
Well, I play trumpet. Yeah, I play trumpet, and I co-produce my music now.
Okay.
But I mean, mostly I'm writing my lyrics and I'm designing the melodies and things like that.
Okay. Good.
And so
that's Peter Joseph.
A wise man told me that if you want to change the world, you have to find what changes you, what completes you, what makes you a full human being, and then intersect that with doing it for the sake of others. And so I do my music, and I want to do it for the sake of others. And so this video. I also wanted to kind of rap live if we could, if we have time.
Go rap, right? But we got 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay.
So
that's it.
So use haiku or something. Get it all in.
Okay.
We've been talking.
We'll do the video, man. We'll do the video. But this video is called Mayday. It's dedicated to Occupy movements, to the women's rights movements, the civil rights movements.
Good.
It's called Mayday so International Workers' Day, right?
Right.
The chorus goes, whose side are you on?
Yeah.
Whose side are you on?
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
In the eye of the storm, whose side are you on? I'm nervous. And that's like a hymn. It's a protest hymn. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So me and this very talented guy called Lenses, we took this melody and we built a beat around it. And it's called Mayday. And I guess if we can go to it, we can
that's
go
your
to
clip.
That's the clip. Yeah,
well, listen, Melanie, maybe you can set it up. How long
so start setting it up.
How long does it run?
It's about a little over 5 minutes.
We better get it done because we only got about 6 minutes left. So we better get it done.
In the meantime, though, I'll rap this then.
Okay.
So this is a
try
new
to
song.
set that up and just run it whenever you can, Melanie. And you go ahead, wrap up.
In the meantime, so this is
wrap us out to the.
I'll wrap you up.
It's going.
Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? We're in the eye of the storm, so tell me, whose side are you on?
Just to fight, efforts to rekindle the light, descend, pillage and plight of loose ends in the village, in spite being made in the image and like of God. But the dim of the night is strong and the day's not so bright. Hold on, cause we're in for a fight. It's prolonged, cause no dark means no light. You go wrong before you go right. No gain until we no plight. No day till we get through this night. Spain's a bitch and it tends to bite. We could switch, but seem to enjoy the fight. It's for a victory, man, antagonized. Foolish, governed by a will to die. We knew this, but still chose to rely. Newness brought on by acquired desire. Point, shoot, kill a hope burning inside. With your fires bright dead in our eyes. Don't lie, does it hurt to kill your own children as they fight what you have grown into a love that which you are known to misuse? Bring hope, passion, love. You bring a pistol, that's the issue. Fight for you, but you fight us. So the love fades to dry dust on the weight of the lost trust. Fear is cold to the touch with the tinge of your handcuffs. No just us, just rough cuts, and then we might just be righteous.
This is not the time to be afraid. No, I can hardly wait. Oh, yet to be displayed. Oh, public disappointment. This is not the Eden it was supposed to be. I was given life for free, no entry fee. Take for granted. Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? We're in the eye of the storm. Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? We're in the eye of the storm. Whose side are you on?
History is plagued by those denied freedom. Block it now, but in time you would need it. What goes around comes around, our destiny is a cycle. Know your end is mine when you fire your rifle. I wish this duality was just in appearance, but it's crunch time, so choose your allegiance.
People are prophets, real versus objectives. You've land bastards your profits for transactions and profits. Pensions are tiny offers, your hatred. So let's be honest, attention without progress is all guessing. It requires a lesson in economics. The system you protect, not more than an empty promise. Broken for centuries by legacies of our fathers. Yet the ideas you so desperately cling to, and destroyed the world in the process. You don't mean to,
but you see, we're on our way to change course. Every era's advance is a paid cost, and we pay that cost every time you enforce the interests of a view with no remorse. It's part of what you do of the same source. Whether you read it in a book or see it when you look in our eyes. Humanity is strange to the voice at an end. You represent a dying course in the age of the engine. All this fear and aggression, we get us nowhere, so take care and heed our lesson and stay clear as we lay the seeds of progression. Cause all your greed and obsession causes bleeding recession of life. When we ask whose side are you on, oh, it's rhetorical, there's only one side, come on.
Every day I wake up, it's the same. Oh, I must play the game. Oh, drop bombs when they call my name. We are not alone. This is not the way that things are supposed to be. We were given eyes to see. We have no enemies. Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? Right in the eye of the storm. Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on? Whose side are you on?
Pretty good and everything like that. It was a good job what you did. You got a lot of that footage. That's really good. So what do you?
Okay.
We got about 4 minutes left.
4 minutes. I want to give you one verse and one chorus. That's going to be part of my next single of my next EP.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
The business cycle or the cycle of life. The business cycle or the cycle of life. The business cycle or the cycle of life. On this journey with no ending, path with no beginning, we killed our protection and lost our direction, yet still maintain affection for a succubus that distract from our reflection of the infinite. It was a gift and it came with strings attached. Can we leave the sacred things intact? No. Now we're reminiscent, seeking power and wisdom, and people no different who drink the blood of the innocent till they turn guilty. Now we're all roaches, meaning we're all filthy. We run from the light, thrive in the dark. Let's thrive, barely stay alive, and it starts with a lie we confirm. Every time we embark on this ride, our part is contrived, but an art must burn so we can learn to revive what was lost. This life that like we live it out of spite. It turned from a cry that grew into a chant and dedication of mourn to defy what you taught. First, purge all of the shit that we bought. It ain't gonna mean shit when we're tossed to the heaviness. To survive is to be lost. The vampire's mistakes apply us with the cost. Any piece we can take only happens on their watch, but with roaches anyway, it only happens in the dark. The business cycle, or the cycle of life. The business cycle, or the cycle of life. The business cycle, or the cycle of life. The business cycle, or the cycle of life.
Amen, brother. Amen. That's to say. That's good. That's good. Have you got that set to music and stuff?
Yeah. We have I'm recording it right now. We're in the process of recording that one.
That's really good. That's you do. That's your work here.
Yeah,
that's your poetry.
That's all my writings there. And the chorus is going to be my producer Randoses.
Yeah.
You can catch him at randoses.com.
Yeah.
He's actually singing a different hook, but I can't sing.
Doses, not Doster. I know Ron Doster. No, okay.
Randoses.
Randoses. All right. Yeah.
So I can't sing, so I put in another hook instead.
You sing. You sing very nice. I mean, you talk. Yeah, you sing like that. Okay. You picked that up. That was really good. Thank you. You use haiku and everything to do it, and it was really good. It'd be good if we could get all these things just in English translated in all the languages of the world. Wouldn't it be great if you had an autonomic thing that could translate everything into one language to all the other languages of the world, so that all this stuff could be getting out? And it's also good to be able to think we might be able to, we've been trying to get you to think about becoming a member of the team over here at Public Access. It's got a great potentiality for helping to bring about the goals of the zeitgeist in the society. So let's hope we can get you over here for talent for this Manhattan neighborhood public access facility.
I like it.
Thank you, brother. Thank you very much. Your pleasure. That's it. You heard it here. Johnny Hobbes and JohnnyHobbes.com. And thanks a lot for viewing. We're coming back again tomorrow, so tune in. And Johnny, thanks a lot for that.
Thank you for having me.
Let me know about your gigs and stuff. Do you gig around? And
yes,
let me know.
We
We got to stay in touch. Okay?
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Let's do
okay.
it,
Thank you. We're coming back tomorrow.